It's a good idea for solid contact with your irons and hitting your driver solid that your head stays in the circle it started with during the backswing. So let's start with that, right? Head stays in the circle. Now, where might your head go where it doesn't stay in the circle? Well, if I move my little tool out of here for a second, during the backswing, might have my head, just in terms of this way, this view, my head might move off the ball too much, or it might move towards the target too much. Both of those set you up for a series of compensations where you're way less likely to consistently hit the ball solid, right? So we want to keep your head in the circle. That's really easy to say, but how do I do this? I want to talk to you today about live view golf. Now, you guys hear me say all the time that you need feedback when you're practicing. You need to know if you're actually doing what you're trying to do, and the best way to give yourself feedback ultimately is video. And not only is video the best way to give yourself feedback, but being able to see yourself simultaneously as you're doing a movement is the best form of video feedback. It's the best way I've seen to make changes in your swing and be able to correlate the differences between your feels and your reels. Live view is super easy to use and set up. Simply set it up behind or in front of you. You connect it with your iPad or phone, pop that on the ground. You can actually do your practice, see yourself as you're doing it, the best way to expedite your process. I encourage you guys to check out Live View Golf. We'll put a link in the description down below with a coupon code. Hey guys, Eric here outside at the Bethlehem Golf Club. In today's video, we're going to talk about whether or not you should keep your head still during the golf swing. Something that comes up all the time in person and online lessons at cogornogolf.com, and something we have conversations about. So I want to take a closer look at that today. Should the head stay still? Let's hop over to Analyzer, take a look, then we'll come back and talk about it. Okay, so let's see if these players keep their heads still. On the right, Adam Scott with an iron swing. On the left, Mr. Robert Rock with a driver. These are two swings we would all love to have as models, so we'll see if there's any differences. Circle around the head to start. Let's watch as he goes back. So the head stays in the circle pretty much with some turning and tilting during the backswing. Now notice as he starts his downswing, very clearly from the setup until about the left arm parallel position, his head has moved both forward towards the target and down towards the ball. It stops its forward and down movement at about left arm parallel. Now let's watch from here through. Notice how his head now stays within that circle until about arms parallel into the follow-through position. And then from there, it will release up and out into here. So if we take him back to the setup position, here we have his head when it starts. He stays in that circle during the backswing. He moves down and forward towards the target in the ball until left arm parallel. So when I say left arm parallel, that's right about here, left arm parallel during the downswing. And then his head moves up and forward, or rather first it stays left arm parallel. So that's a key point. It moves down and forward to here, then it stays there as the club slings through, and then he allows it to work up and through into the follow-through. So not really staying in the same spot there, but there's some key points where he does stay in the same spot. Let's look at Robert Rock on the left, circle on the head up to the top. He's going to more or less stay in the circle. Now as he starts down during the downswing, we notice what? The same thing, right? Towards the target, slightly down, less down, but towards the target a little bit. Now watch here a big difference between iron and driver. Watch his head motion's actually going to back up into the original circle he started. You see that counter move there? So he goes here to the top. He works forward slightly to start down. And now from here, he's going to work his way. Let's take out that last circle. Watch, he's going to work his way back into the circle he started with till about club parallel. Now his head's going to stay in that circle as it continues moving a little bit back away from the target until about arms parallel, right? And then the same thing. Once he gets into his follow-through, he'll allow the head to work up and forward. So what are the points we're looking at here? Well, with both the driver and the iron, the head does stay still, if we want to say it's in the same spot. There's some turning and tilting of it, but the head stays basically in the same spot from the setup to the top. both the iron and driver, the head will move forward towards the target, a little bit more down with the iron compared to the driver, but both of those moving forward until about left arm parallel. Let's take that out of here and put this in. So both of those we see a forward motion. Now the difference being with the iron, his head just stays in that forward motion as the club slings through, both of them till arms parallel, and then he allows it to go up and forward. So the difference with the iron is the head doesn't back up. It goes down and forward, stays there through the hitting zone until it works back up and forward. The driver, the head's going to work back to its original spot, even back slightly farther than that, again until about the arms parallel, and then you can release yourself. Okay guys, so really there's three different motions or planes of motions that we're gonna look at as to does the head stay still. There right away, we saw from the face-on angle, well, not really, right? It doesn't stay in the same circle, but there are some key points as to where it does and some spots where it definitely should not. So let's look at that first spot a little bit closer and what drill to start with. Now, we saw obviously with the face-on, it's a good idea for solid contact with your irons and hitting your driver solid that your head stays in the circle it started with during the backswing. So let's start with that, right? Head stays in the circle. Now, where might your head go where it doesn't stay in the circle? If I move my little tool out of here for a second, during the backswing, might have my head, just in terms of this way, this view, my head might move off the ball too much, or it might move towards the target too much. Both of those set you up for a series of compensations where you're way less likely to consistently hit the ball solid, right? So we want to keep your head in the circle. Now, that's really easy to say, but how do I do this? Now I've got this little noodle here we got from Don Law down in Florida, Boca Raton, Florida, at Osprey Point. And he gave this to me, and it's a really good tool you can use to keep your head centered. I have one of these, you likely do not. But you can create an object like this at home. You can put an object through your golf bag. You want to have something that sits just to the right of your head. Now notice I have this, what would you say, maybe an inch or two to the right of my ear, okay? So inside my shoulder. Whether or not I move off the ball too much, right, if I'm going to touch my face or move towards the target, I can use this as a reference. If I'm the golfer who moves off it so much, this is simple. Don't hit the noodle, right? That's going to feel like you're staying much more on the ball. If you're the golfer who moves towards the target too much, notice I've gotten farther away from the noodle. Also not good. You essentially want to feel like you're getting closer to or staying on top of the noodle. But either way, as I start to work this noodle just to the right of my ear, for me to keep my head in the circle on the way back, I just want to learn to hit from here where my head stays pretty centered. And that's going to be part one for me to hit the ball solid. Now you also notice there's some subtle differences with the iron versus the driver. And both of those, the key points, were really your head stays centered at the top. We saw with the iron, it does move away from the noodle, right? If I bring that back in, it does move slightly away from the noodle. And the reason that happens, why does my head move down and forward a little bit? The answer is because with an iron, the ball's on the ground. And so I want to make sure I hit down on the ball, hit the ball first, and ground second. Versus the driver, what did we see? We saw, well, hey, his head did work a little forward, not down as much, but then it started to work back, home run style, right? The head was back, away, kind of the original circle that he started with. Now, why does that make sense with a driver? Why would I want to work back a little bit with the driver? Because the ball's teed up, and I want to hit up on the ball. So that's really just a function of what your brain's trying to do with the golf ball. It's really important with both of those that from about left arm parallel, this might be in the way, but left arm parallel here until here, that head stayed in the circle. Now the head doesn't stay in the circle forever. It's allowed to come up and out. So what I would do is record yourself from face on, start with the head staying in the circle this way, right? Use this as a reference point and really focus in here on the head staying where it is from left arm parallel to right arm parallel. Left arm parallel to right arm parallel. Now my neck and face are turning, but my head, as you can see, stayed pretty much where it is. Now that's only one dimension of how the head works. Let's take a look from down the line and look at the second dimension. The next little piece you want to look at in terms of the head motion is the head on the wall, so the forward part. You see the lines I have drawn there down the front of the head. We have Justin Thomas on the left, and what you'll notice in good players, we'll get to the up and down in a moment,
is what you're trying to do, and what you typically see is that head stays more or less pretty close to that line during the setup, takeaway, top of backswing, in transition. Some guys back out a little bit on the way down depending upon their setup, but it stays on there pretty darn good until about the arms parallel into the follow-through spot like we saw from the front, and then that head's allowed to release up and out. Brooks on the right, same idea, line down the front. Camera moves a little bit, but he stays on the line there pretty steadily, stays on the line, right, boom, and stays on the line till about arms parallel, and then that releases.
Okay, so from the down the line angle, this one's pretty straightforward, right? Draw the line down the front of your head, keep your head on it. There's a lot of different movements going on that's controlling that. The ability during the backswing to do that, right, has a lot to do with my lead shoulder going down. And then during the way through, that has a lot to do with my trail shoulder working down. So your shoulders working down towards the ground on both sides is gonna be a key factor for that, as well as the flexion extension. So my upper body bending forward or back. Now all that can be quite simple or simplified by using the same sort of noodle. Again, if you don't have one of these objects in your bag, put this on your head or something similar, keep your head on it, right? So if I'm gonna just hit a little short shot here with this, and I want to just essentially have my head stay more or less on it, that takes care of all my movements that I do. The little thing to keep in mind here, if you're normally someone who would go down and forward of it or come up and back of it, you're going to need to feel the opposite motions and exaggerate. This is the tool to use. Record yourself from down the line, draw the head on your line for feedback.
The last part here with keeping the head still, we have the height. Do they go up or down? Here's Adam Scott down the line, iron line on the top. Well, you'll notice he maintains his height through the takeaway, but from the takeaway to the top, you'll notice his head does work down a little bit. I think tour average about 1 inch down with the head during the backswing. So there he is at the top. And then you'll notice he lowers even more during the start of the downswing and evens out about left arm parallel. That's where you would see that down and forward motion from face on. Stays at that same height through impact, again, until about arms parallel. That's the key spot, and then releases back up. Now, not everyone does this exactly the same, but we'll see some commonalities for sure amongst some model swings. Here's Hideki, again, working down during the late backswing. Now, part of the camera moves, but he's down at the top, and then he's a little bit more down in transition, right? So he's down at the top, a little bit more down in transition, and then he levels off that head motion. It stays basically the same height, again, until about arms parallel into the follow-through. Another motion here, Justin Thomas. And these are with irons. You will typically see a little bit more of the down motion than you will with the driver. But here's Justin Thomas. Now, he's a little bit different. He goes down right away, and he lowers a lot during the backswing. So what'll be different with him is he won't really lower at all from there coming down because he's already done all the lowering. And again, he maintains that head height pretty good until about arms parallel. So the key here being the height of the head and the position of it with the irons from about left arm parallel into arms parallel.
All right, guys, last one you just saw there, the up and down part with your head. So you saw there with the iron, some of them, a lot of players actually go just slightly down during the backswing, usually not early. You saw Justin Thomas did. Usually that'll happen a little bit from the top towards the end of the backswing as you're starting your downswing. Some good players maintain height. You don't have to go down. You're likely not going up. Okay, so that's one part to look for, especially with the irons. You likely not want to raise above. You can stay the same or go down. With the driver, I've seen some, me included, not that I'm a super long driver, but I've seen some longer players work up a little bit on the way back to be able to create the down. I'd say it's okay with driver, maybe not as much with irons. So here, I've got the noodle. So if you can get one of these from Don Law, okay, or you want to build one, you can put this same noodle, just use it for all three of these depending on what your issue is. If I put that right above my head, Mary told me this is maybe 2 inches or so above my head, what I should be able to do is I stay under that, certainly going back, and then I'm farther under it coming down, ideally, right, or at least I don't hit that. If I'm making a normal swing, my head should be underneath it. If you're someone who sees yourself lift up on the way back or lift up on the way down, I mean, this is a great training aid for you. Put an object noodle through the wall at home, golf bag, 1 inch or 2 above your head, and keep your head underneath it as you're hitting, and that's gonna help you a lot with that. You saw a lot of those players lowering a little bit, but the main point is stay under it going back. You can go a little bit down, it's fine on the way through. And then you're gonna be forward and above it in the follow through. I'm not keeping my head down like this forever. I'm hitting, I'm underneath it, and then I'm forward and up. So unintentionally, 3 ways to use this training aid, but really answering the question of, does your head stay still? Am I advocating that your head should move all over the place? No. But I do want to show you that what a normal, good model golf swing would look like. There is some motion, that's okay. During the backswing, it should stay really close to where it was. From left arm parallel down to arms parallel in the follow through, the hitting zone, it should stay really close to where it is. Goes back with the driver, more forward with the irons, and with both of them comes up and through into your follow through. Hopefully this video helps you guys in terms of understanding that and hitting the ball better. If you have any questions, as always, leave a comment down below. Hey guys, thanks for watching today's video. If you liked the video, do us a favor, click that like button down below, click the subscribe button, and also leave a comment down below. It really helps us out. The more interaction there is between us, YouTube likes that, sends our videos out to more people, really helps us. If you want to support the channel, you can do click that little like button down there. Appreciate that. If you do like these YouTube style videos, we're gonna put a card on the screen for a very similar video like this. If you wanna hop over to Cogorno Golf, check that out, see what it's all about, work with me so I can help improve your golf game. We'll also put that on the screen. Thank you guys for watching.